Good morning, Cody, and welcome to the Carb Paleo show.
Thanks for having me. Good morning.
It's our pleasure. Good morning, Mark. How are you?
Wonderful, thank you. Can't complain. Well, you know the rules. Nobody listens when you complain, so why bother?
Right. So, Cody, you are the CEO of Grass Roots Farmers. As I came across your great meat products at Paleo FX 2019 and fell in love, so we had to talk to you. So, regarding your background, can you tell us about your professional background before and as you got into this business?
Sure, yeah. Well, I'm a native Arkansan, grew up in rural Arkansas. Grew up on a small family farm, but we didn't really farm for profit. It was, but I grew up really experiencing nature, farm life, but ended up, as many kids in rural America, thought that I wanted to leave and go off to the city and not come back. And so went off and got a degree in physics, and then got a job in the Northeast teaching high school physics and math at a college prep high school, and moved away and did that for several years. And sort of sprinkled along that journey, I had a couple different food experiences that really started pushing me to or developing an interest in high quality food and looking at food not only as an amazing experience, but also as medicine in a lot of ways. And so while living in the Northeast, I worked at a restaurant, a James Beard award-winning restaurant that was really kind of ahead of its time. This was in the early 2000s, before the local food movement had really gotten much steam here in the U.S.
Yeah.
And had a couple experiences where I ate, I didn't really like tomatoes, but I ate a tomato there that just blew my mind. The flavor was so good. And every night before dining service, we would go over the menu and they would talk about, make sure everyone knew where, which farm the food came from, and the production methodology of how those farms were raising the whether it was the corn or the pork or whatever it might be. And that really stuck with me. And after a couple of years of living up there, I had decided that actually I really missed Arkansas and was eager to move back home. And so moved back to rural Arkansas, continued my passion, a developing passion in food, managed a small bakery in the Ozark Mountains here in Arkansas, and was itching to do something that was a little bit more tied to the land. And I grew up on a small farm, about 40 acres, and it was something that I just really wanted to get back to my roots, I guess is the way to put it. And about that time, I met my now wife, who had just graduated college and was grew up in the area where I was working at the bakery. And we started. We both had this interest and were heavily influenced by a book we read by Michael Pollan, The Omnivore's Dilemma. Yeah. And I read about some farmers doing, some really innovative livestock farming, where they were farming with the land, improving the quality of the land, producing these amazing quality meats, and then going directly to the customer to sell those products and developing a relationship with the customer. And so it just, that's kind of the Cliff Notes version of my professional background and how it kind of led me and then my now wife into farming. So.
Right. So as I understand, Grass Roots Farmers is not just you; it's combined different farmers growing different animals or products. And can you explain the principle of the business?
Sure, yeah. So Grass Roots is actually a farmer cooperative. So it is a group of farmers working together, formally as a cooperative, to share certain aspects. So they're individually independent farms that share. We work together. We develop our consistent standards. We all use the same production techniques, the same feed, and as a group, we work together to to sell our products under the Grass Roots brand. And what that was born out of really was when we launched our farm in 2007, my wife and I, from the beginning, wanted to be not just a for-profit farm, but we wanted to help educate other farmers on those production practices that were good for the land, good for the animals, and produced superior quality and from both a flavor and health standpoint product. And so, it was part of our mission from the beginning to work with other farmers and help other farmers succeed. And what we realized as we started trying to grow our farm business was the infrastructure that used to exist to support small family farms around the country no longer exists. The vast majority, 99% of the meats produced in this country are produced by large industrial operations that don't that small farmers, they don't support small farmers really. So it's very difficult there's a lot of barriers for small farmers to be able to succeed. And so we saw working as a cooperative with other farmers as a way to start to break down some of those barriers for farmers and help farmers succeed and make it easier for customers to get these kinds of products. And so some of the things that we do as a co-op are we go out and we promote our message, tell our story, and help customers learn about what these farmers are doing. We also help farmers. We have people on staff that go out and train farmers on how to improve their production techniques, how to become more efficient on their farms. We do things like our chicken farmers use non-GMO feed, and we actually provide capital to those farmers to make it easier for them to expand their operations. And so we help them cash flow some of their inputs. And so we're doing all kinds of things along the value chain, along the supply chain between the farmer and the customer that make it easier for customers to learn about and get these products, while also making it easier for the farmers to succeed in their farm business.
Yeah,
so,
sounds great. You're expanding a sustainable way of farming, and you also in the process you are teaching farmers to survive, to live off their work instead of barely. And not only that, but you also take care of the earth in this way, in a sustainable manner, which a lot of farmers have lost that knowledge. So I think that's a great standard. And one could argue that a lot of that would be very difficult if the internet didn't exist, right?
Absolutely, yeah. As you were saying that, I started thinking that one of the things that we do differently is in most agriculture over the past 75 to 100 years has been increasingly focused on least cost production models, which means like produce the chicken or the carrot or the tomato or the cow as cheaply as possible, right? And so what happens when they do that is you sacrifice all kinds of things for the sake of having the cheapest food you can possibly produce. And that includes the environment, animal welfare, farmer welfare, health for the customer. And so we want to prioritize those things. We want to prioritize creating better soils. We want to prioritize having a healthier product that customers that benefits our customers, that tastes better, and we want to prioritize farmers making a living wage doing this. And so and that would not be possible if we had to go through the commodity market, or our only option was trying to go through a grocery store chain. And being able to use the internet to connect directly with customers that are looking for this kind of product is a real game changer for all kinds of businesses, but certainly for the farmers that we work with. It makes it possible for them to be able to do this.
Right. So you have farmers all over the country, right? Can you tell us where they are located? Not that this matters, just to explain
Sure.
how widespread your operation is.
Sure. So just a little bit, of background on when we started. So Grass Roots started in 2014, and we started from the beginning. From the very beginning, we partnered with a wonderful nonprofit that's based out of Arkansas called Heifer International. Right? Heifer's had a presence in the U.S. for 75 years now. They've also they do a lot of their work, and they're known mostly for their international work. But they partnered with Grass Roots Farmers to help set up this value chain and provide the support we're providing for the farmers or to sort of seed that business model. And so the initial group of farmers that started this in partnership with Heifer were based out of Arkansas. And as we have been able to grow our customer base, it's been exciting to bring on more farmers. And so now this year we'll work with somewhere between 30 and 40 farmers. And we've expanded to farmers. We have some in southern Missouri. We have some in Western Oregon, some beef farmers in Western Oregon. We have some in North Carolina, some grass-fed beef farmers. We have some poultry farmers we work with in Texas, and then some in Kentucky. And so we are slowly expanding geographically to work with other groups of farmers that are meeting our standards and are facing the same kinds of challenges that the original grassroots farmers were facing. And so it's exciting to start to work with a broader group of farmers. And another thing to note is that everything that we sell it has the grassroots label on it, but we are very committed to, going back to my days working at Al Forno, the restaurant in the Northeast that really impacted me. We care deeply about transparency and traceability. And so every single package that you get has a farm of origin stamp on it. You know exactly what farm that came from, and that's a really important thing to me and the rest of the organization, is really trying to educate customers on knowing your farmer, knowing where it came from, so that you can help learn more about your products and have more trust in what you're getting.
Right. So are your farmers, your local farmers, do they sell locally as well, or just through your organization? It
depends. I mean, some sell just through Grassroots. Some sell, might go to a farmer's market. And what we found is that in the beginning, farmers were selling a bit through the farmer's market and a bit through Grassroots. But as Grassroots has been able to grow demand, find more customers, attract more customers, we've seen more farmers transitioning to selling more products through Grassroots. And so that's an exciting development. And one of the things that's different about Grassroots is that we are farmer owned and managed. Yes. And so it's not like they are selling to a grocery store chain that could go out and find someone else who's going to be a lot cheaper. This is an organization that's farmer forward. We're thinking about farmers, a lot, and care about making sure farmers are, making a livelihood and have security in doing this. And so the way it's organized and governed, this business is very different in how it prioritizes our relationships with farmers and other partners in general.
Great. Are you open to accept more farmers?
We are actually. Yeah.
What are requirements? I know one of my friends runs a mostly duck and poultry farm, and typically sells to restaurants locally, but maybe it wouldn't hurt for you to talk to him. He does duck breast and foie gras and things like that, so that might be something. So I'll once the show is over, I'll connect the two of you and you
sure.
take it from there. Yeah,
that sounds great. Yeah, we actually don't have any duck farmers right now, and that's something that I would be interested in discussing for sure. And we actually publish our standards on our website, so we're very transparent about that.
Right.
And we work with the farmers to make sure, like, one thing that's very unique about our chicken production and turkey is that our chickens are you've heard the term free range, I'm sure.
Yes.
Well, free range can mean a lot of different things. It can simply be a chicken house with a hole knocked into the side of it and a dirt run around the outside of the chicken house. And in a lot of cases, the chickens don't go outside, and if they do, they're not on fresh grass. And what Grass Roots farmers do is we actually have mobile pens that are on pasture that get moved every single day to fresh pasture. And so that makes for a much healthier bird, much better flavor. They get fresh grass every single day. You don't have to use things like antibiotics, and it's better for the soil and a better farming environment too. So
I've seen that done at White Oak Farms in Georgia. I visited their farm. We interviewed them a couple of years ago. Quite impressive, yes. Joe Salatin started that.
Yeah, he did. Right? Yes, sir. Yep.
So, Mark and I have been following this whole movement. I mean, I don't know if you remember or know, but I'm a chef by trade. So I've also been supporting all kind of local food and all that. So tell us about your quality standards. What do you expect and require from your farmers to follow? What kind of rules? Like you mentioned, non-GMO.
Yep. So, like I said, we have our standards are published on our site, and so we require all the farmers to meet those standards. The beef is 100% grass-fed and finished, no grain ever. They eat hay and they eat grass, and that's I think that's really. Speaking of, so you're from France. I think that's really where you get some really interesting terroir in the meats on the grass-fed side, the grass-fed beef side especially. You also get that really across the spectrum, all of our animals, but definitely on the grass-fed beef, and then also on the pork side. So the pork, a consistent theme for all of our animals is instead of using a stationary confinement model, which is the majority of the industrial meat, the majority of the meat in the grocery store is raised in confinement operations where they are trying to produce it as cheaply as possible, and instead of moving the animals to fresh pasture, they are giving them antibiotics and things to keep them healthy when in an environment they really don't thrive in.
And growth hormone.
And growth, they're trying to grow as fast as possible, as cheaply as possible, and as the least amount of labor. With our farmers, when you go to a grassroots farm, the animals are always on the move, and so the cattle are being moved once or twice a day to fresh grass. And so what that does is it mimics the patterns you see in nature of herbivores moving across the plains, and you end up with better quality, better selection for the animals. You don't get overgrazing, and you get nice long rest periods that allow the soils to thrive. And then on the pork side, we're ranging our pigs in a mix of pasture and forest, and they are also moving every once a week typically to a new area of forest or pasture. And one of the great things about ranging the pigs in the forest is that they get access to all kinds of nuts and berries that they really love to eat. So acorns, hickory nuts, muscadine grapes, pawpaws, like all these different fruits and nuts that are really healthy for the animal and produce unique flavor profiles. We just recently did a study on, we sent some of our pork to a lab to have the omega-3 fatty acid ratio sampled and tested, and the typical grocery store pork has about, I think it was 70 milligrams of omega-3s, and I'm not sure what the sample size was there, but that same sample size, ours had 700 milligrams of omega-3, so like a 10 times higher omega-3 fatty acid content in the same sample size. And
at this point, we probably should remind our listeners that omega-3s are the healthier type of fats that our brain functions on, and it's not inflammatory, whereby the omega-6 are inflammatory and tends to malfunction with the brain, so to speak, and so that's why we always recommend grass-fed, grass-finished, or free-range, because typically the animals' meat contain a lot more omega-3s than regular industrial meat.
Yeah, thanks for adding that. That's a really important thing to highlight there.
So
yeah.
let's talk about the way you sustain your land.
Yeah.
What techniques are you using? And, you mentioned some of it already. And
Sure. So the same techniques we use to keep our animals healthy and to create a better working environment for the farmers and creates healthier food, better tasting food. Also, this is sort of the magic of it all. There's this symbiotic relationship going on between the animals and the land that, and the consumer, the people that eat the product. So there's this sort of symbiosis across this whole system here, where we're not only making people healthier, create a better environment for the animals, better environment for the farmers, but we're also improving the quality of the soil. So to give you an example, we've tested fields on our pasture that when we took over the farm had an organic matter, which is the organic matter is basically the humus in the soil that holds water and nutrients, and the more of that you have, the better the quality of the soil. So when it rains, it'll hold more water. When it's a better seed bed, it's a better, the plants thrive a lot better, and it creates healthier plants that will make the animals healthier. Right?
Yes.
And so one of the, and it sequesters carbon. The more organic matter you have in the soil, the more carbon that soil can pull out of the air. Right. And so
let's address that issue, because we're getting a lot of complaints from the vegan side of things about saying that beef is extremely detrimental to the environment. Explain how your way of raising your animals is actually beneficial to the environment.
Yeah. So we actually have a blog post on our site where we publish this, these soil tests that showed the improvement in the organic matter. And so we were able to take just one pasture that we sampled. The organic matter went from 1.9% to almost 3.9% organic matter. Now, one way to show that that's improving the quality of the soil and how that impacts the environment is that for every percent organic matter increase you make in the soil, in an acre of soil, that soil will hold 20,000 more gallons of water when it rains. Right? And so that particular acre is holding 40,000 more gallons of water because of the farming practices we've used to improve the soil. So that's preventing runoff. That's keeping, helping deter droughts. It's holding soil, preventing erosion, all kinds of things that you would not have in your traditional confinement production models, where you end up with a bunch of animals confined in one location, where you have a concentration of manure, and you end up with a waste problem versus improving fertility. So
yes. Now, please address the issue of because we are bombarded with these global warming and blah, blah, blah. Can address the issue of the CO2 capture so that you can actually justify your way of growing animals in being beneficial to the environment in general, global environment.
Yeah. So let's see here. I was looking at the stat here. So actually in France, just bring up France again, there's an initiative, the French Ministry of Agriculture has an initiative called the 4 per 1,000 program. All right. And what they are promoting is that if across the globe, on average, we could increase the organic matter by 0.4% per year, that would halt CO2, the annual increase in CO2. Right. And to put that in perspective, on our farm, we have increased it by 37% per year. So, I mean, we are, you know, like we have made enormous, like, I think that there's I mean, they have the research to support this, and this is not, you know, some, you know, liberal organization. This is the, you know, the Ministry of Agriculture in France promoting this, and they have the science to back this up. And we're showing that agricultural practices that we're using are, you know, far outpacing the benchmark they set. And, you know, they are, you know, so I think that this is absolutely an attainable goal with the kind of production practices that we're using here. Now, you know, to go a little further down this track of, you know, should we eat meat or should we not eat meat? All right. So, you know, I am all for eating less meat, but better quality meat. Right.
Yes, yes.
I mean, the average, you know, U.S. consumer eats about 222 pounds of meat a year. Yeah, so we think that's too much, right? But yeah, exactly. That's a lot of meat. But we think that animals, I mean, our fertility comes from animals. I mean, when you separate animals from the farm, and when we did that, that's what happened. So we separated animals from the farm and ended up with a confinement operation that created a waste problem, and then a lack of fertility issue that is being addressed by chemical fertilizers. And so you created two distinct problems, one lack of fertility, the other is a waste problem, by separating animals from the farm. So animals have a very important part in helping maintain and actually improve the quality of our soils.
Right, right. I think we may be in trouble here. You used the L word.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
You can edit that
out. No, we'll keep it because we like to. Mark and I like to poke the L type of people.
Got it.
As
All
well.
right. Yeah.
No, we're not necessarily against them. We're definitely against some of their, you know, policies and how they see the end of the world as, you know, as we speak. And I guess you heard about the new Green Deal.
Yeah.
You have an opinion on that?
I don't. You know, I just, so the way I look at things is I see the world as, I mean, I love I'm very excited about the switch from sustainable to regenerative.
Yes.
I think we can make the world a better place, and I think that I feel pretty strongly that farmers have an important part in that, and I think that it'll make customers a lot healthier, and I think that I love the idea of this not being a a government assisted program. And instead, this is us going direct. This is really solving two distinct problems. One is, farmers are many more than two actually, but you got customers that are looking to be healthier, looking for better quality products, and you got farmers who are wanting to make a living farming in a way that's. I've never met a farmer who wants to exploit the environment and their animals. They just are they're locked into a system that sort of forces them to do that, or they go out of business. And so we're working to help solve those two problems by connecting the farmer and the customer. And so it's a really exciting, like a market-based approach that to me is not top down, it's bottom up. And that's why we have the name Grass Roots.
Right. And what's impressive to me is that a young person like you would actually go out and encourage other young farmers to follow that path, because a lot of young farmers are, I feel, stopped from going into farming because they don't want to be part of that industrial system. Yeah. They just want to take care of the land and the animals and so on and so forth. So I thank you for doing the work you do, because that's extremely important for us, for all of us. All of us, and farmers, and us people as in general, human beings.
Yeah, there's a reason why. I mean, this is an important stat, I think, for everyone to know, but the average age of a farmer is 60 years old today. And so who's going to be raising our food in 10, 15, 20 years? And so that's something that you're right. Young people do not want to get into industrial agriculture because it's not aligned with their values. And it's it's a model that is increasingly becoming, people just don't want to support that. We want to make the world a better place, not exploit the world for the cheapest meat possible. So.
Right. Speaking of that, if you may allow me to be the devil's advocate for a while. I'm also a nutritionist, and when I meet clients and I tell them this is the quality of products you should be eating to become more healthy or to stay healthy, and they say, well, this is way too expensive, I can't afford this. So some people will think of the kind of quality you provide is more elitist for middle class, upper middle class, I can afford this kind of meat. What do you say to that?
So one of the first things I say is, do you know how much a Snickers bar costs per pound?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
$11 a pound. You can buy a grass-fed at grassrootscoop.com for less than that, for less than $10 a pound, right? So I think, so we start there, all right? It's a matter of how you prioritize, how you spend your money, right? There's a lot more nutritional value in that. It also comes down to people cooking. Like it's sure the nice thing about a Snickers bar is you can just open it and eat it. But people have to be able to cook. You can take a whole chicken and get 4, 5, 6 meals out of it, depending on what you do with it. And I think that I'm a real advocate for buying less meat and better quality. I think there's one of the things that I think Michael Pollan was the first person that put this information together. And in 1960, the average American spent 17.5% of their income on food. Yep, and 5.2% on healthcare. Today, that's totally flipped. We spend 6.4% of our income on on food, and 15.8% on healthcare. And so, in my opinion, I think there's it's correlation. But it seems like if people would spend more of their budget on food, I think they'd be a lot healthier and have an opportunity to spend less on healthcare and live a much more pleasurable life too, I think.
Yeah, so. Let me tell you a little story. I wrote a book because I thought that might be a good subject, but I wrote a book how to eat healthy French cuisine for less than $10 a day. Because a friend of mine challenged me, and I was also replying to some of my clients complaining about the cost of healthy eating, right? And I sent my son out to check out the cost of fast food. You can easily, if you eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner in fast food, you can easily spend $15 in garbage food. I don't even call it food. I shouldn't even call it food. Not to mention all the packaging and all the waste generated, and the plastic and the paper and all of that. So you consider that you're actually paying all this money to eat garbage, and for $10 a day, I can prove it to you and actually put all the numbers together. That you can eat for less than $10 a day fresh, healthy food, right?
Yeah.
Can't sell the book. Cannot sell the book.
Cannot
sell. I swear to you, the book came out five years ago. If I sold maybe 10 in 5 years, and this is a cultural thing. In this country, people have been brainwashed to buy convenience.
Yeah,
everything's convenience. Everything's processed. Everything is supposedly cheap. Short term, but long term.
That's right.
Like a friend of mine told me, when you compare the costs, for example, someone would complain that using my surfaces is expensive, and they say, have you Have you ever costed out cancer lately?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So you have to completely flip around your perspective from, is it more important to spend a little more money on healthy food to keep you healthy and eat good quality food?
Yep.
I'm a chef, so all my recipes are not just healthy, they're good, they taste great. You know, most of them are French recipes. Because my position is that if I put a client on a diet and the diet is boring and bland and, you know, they will never continue. So I have to offer them good quality recipes and tasty. And they can brag, you know, I'm eating French healthy food, and, you know. But it's amazing how this constant chase to the bottom, to the cheaper price, when you pay, I don't know, a few dollars for a bag of sheep, there's nothing but bad for you. Instead of eating a fruit, for example, just keep it simple, right? But people are being so brainwashed into doing that they, when you expose them to another way of looking at it, they're completely lost. I mean, literally, they look at you like you're speaking a complete different language. I had a nice lady as a customer. She had all sorts of health issues. She was eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner at McDonald's. I could not convince her to eat even one apple a day.
Wow.
She just couldn't do it. Not even. I said, with her burger, why don't you order a salad? It'll be a step in the right direction. She couldn't do it, and she was a very nice lady. And I had to give up on her because I just, you know, she's wasting her money and I'm wasting my time. But this is what we're talking about. So you and I and Mark and all those farmers out there are doing our best to provide information and quality products to people. And people should keep in mind that, yes, good quality food costs a little more, but in the end, it costs a lot less than doctors, hospitals, and medication, right?
That's right. Yep.
How many people are on multiple medications?
Oh, it seems like everybody these days, right? I mean,
and they think it's normal.
Yep, that's right.
They think it's normal. What normal is to be, you know, like Mark and I, you know, I don't remember. Mark, are you over 60? I don't want to.
21 and a bit.
Okay.
It's just a very big bit.
Well, people like me, let's just not put Mark in the picture here, that is 66 years old and very good health. And I do it mostly through nutrition. I do exercise a little bit, but not really that much, considering the average American tendency to, you know, run and spend a lot of money on health clubs. It's the whole concept, garbage in, garbage out. If you put garbage in your body, you're going to feel like garbage. And it doesn't matter how many hours in the gym you spend. If your intake of food is not the high quality, lower amount, that's another issue which you address already. Is it's better to have higher quality but smaller amount of food of higher nutrition, and not how do you say, overwork your system, your body. Because people feed themselves or stuff themselves with poor quality food with no nutritional value. And they keep on eating all day because their body say, hey, you stuffed me, but you didn't feed me. I'm not, you know. So they constantly go up and down and eat snacks and, you know, to keep their energy level up, and then spend all their money and gyms and all that, which is ridiculous. But consider starting from the beginning, which is the food we eat. And do, basically I call it prevention medicine, you know. So you pay a little more in your food as medicine, and you end up paying a lot less. I don't have any medication. I don't take anything.
Wow, that's amazing.
I pass all my health tests every year, you know, with Medicare, with not a problem. But it's so difficult to convince people to look at it this way. As an American, what's your point of view on that?
Yeah. Well, I think that it's so the customers, a large portion of the customers of Grassroots have had some kind of health scare, or have had someone in the family have had a health scare, and they have seen the light. That food is what you eat matters, right, to your health. We also have customers who see what you eat matters to the environment. There's all kinds of things. The lowest cost meat or food production model externalizes all these things, right? Health, the environment, animal welfare, whatever it might be. And so we're finding that customers are seeing that, have had some experience, and then what really hooks them on top of that is the flavor. There's actually been interesting research around healthier vegetables and meats that have more nutrition, have more flavonoids, and so they actually taste better, have more flavor. I was looking at a customer comment yesterday talking about how they never used to eat chicken drumsticks before, and they got some of ours, and they were just amazed that all you had to do was add salt and pepper to it, right? So you save some money there on having to do something fancy with it, right? You can just roast it in the oven with salt and pepper. And so we've found that there is we're seeing customers. I mean, the health. Americans are not we're not a healthy country. And one of the reasons why is that our grandparents spent more on food than we do. And that's a portion of income, and that's showing up. It's catching up with us as a country, and healthcare costs are skyrocketing. Welfare, people's welfare is going down, and they are looking at exercise, but also increasingly healthier foods to help address that. And one of the things that we like to say is it's not just what you eat, but what you eats that matters, right? So especially in the livestock side, it's really important to make sure that the chicken or the turkey or the pork, those are animals that are being raised and that are eating things that make them really healthy, and that corresponds with a much healthier pork chop that tastes a lot better too.
Right. So there's where you don't have to use antibiotics like the commercial operation.
That's right. Yeah, that's another whole different. 80% of the antibiotics used in the U.S. are for livestock production.
Yes.
And so, and that's just to make them grow faster and live in squalid conditions, right? Which is terrible. And
we also forgot to mention the consequences on the water table of the pollution created by this operation. Right?
Oh yes, the runoff in the Gulf, and yes, it's absolutely terrible. And so I think there's a lot of problems with our agricultural system, and frankly, a lot of the things that are being promoted, like in the clean meat area, are hinge on certain crop productions that are going to increase that dead zone in the Gulf. And so we're not saying, we're still we're advocating for less meat, but we see meat as being able to properly raise livestock as a way to help reduce that erosion and that runoff that's causing pollution in our waters.
Okay, I think we've addressed the pollution issue and the environment issues. So tell us about your line of product. What do you offer? Let's start with what do you offer, and then I'll move on to the next question.
Sure. So we offer, you can grassrootscoop.com. You can order pasture-raised chicken, pasture-raised turkey. We have all different kinds of cuts, and we also do forest and pasture-raised pork and grass-fed beef. And we offer seasonally, we have lamb, grass-fed lamb available too, and all various kinds of cuts. You can order what you want, how you want, and it's not a subscription. It's a You get what you want when you want it, and it's shipped directly to your house. It's all frozen at the peak of freshness, which we really take that very seriously, and just really great tasting meats that don't take a lot of seasoning.
Right. Another issue which I've seen with my own eyes when I went to visit White Oak Farms is, how do you process your animals?
So we actually have our own processing facility that the majority of our animals go through. We do work with one processor out in the on the West Coast with the beef farmers in Oregon that we work with. But the majority, all of our poultry go through a cooperatively owned processing facility. And then the same thing, the majority of the pork and beef do too. And it's something we take extremely seriously. For years, we actually processed, we processed our own poultry. And we actually have farmers that go and spend time working in the processing plant. And it's we take animal welfare extremely seriously from start to finish there, where we train the employees that work there, or get to visit farms and understand how committed we are to trying to create the best environment possible for the animals. And we want that to translate into the most humane and calm harvest experience possible at the end of the day for the animal. So.
Right.
So we actually, we're able to, that's controlled from start to finish, and that's an important part of what we do.
You already mentioned that earlier, but just to repeat, how do we know where our meat is coming from?
So every single package that you get from Grass Roots has a farm of origin stamp on it that allows you to trace it back to the individual farm. We also have a QR code on it that you can scan, and you can learn more about the whole journey of the animal from farm to fork. So you can learn which farm it was raised on, what day it was processed, where it was processed, more about the processing facility. So we're very committed to transparency and giving our customers the information they need to make an educated decision when they're buying our products.
Okay. Do you follow any kind of certification program, or I understand you're not. Some people might question that, but you're not USDA certified organic. Any other certification that?
So our feed is all certified GMO free.
Okay.
And then we have not found production standards that are as rigorous as ours. We are actually more rigorous than the standards that exist out there, like USDA, like the free range, for instance. Like you can put those things on your label, but that just means that they're, that can mean so many different things. And so, our approach with our customers is, and I think that's more important when you have when you're sitting on the shelf of a grocery store or trying to go through a restaurant distributor. In our case, we're going directly to the customer, and we want to, whatever our customers want to know, we want to be able to give them access to. And so that's really where we publish our standards on our website. We have open farm days where customers can come tour farms and visit our farms, or even our processing facilities. We've had customers come and do that before. And so we take sort of a different approach that is more focused on developing a relationship with our customers and inviting them in to tell us what they want from us, what do they need to see from us to feel good about, to make an educated decision, I guess.
Yeah. Maybe one day I'll be one of those visitors.
Yeah, you should come up. It's a great. We actually have a couple of pasture poultry farms in Hillsboro, so not too far from here.
Right. Okay, now I'm not just a chef, I'm also a geek. So one thing that really intrigued me, and this is the first time I've ever seen this, is that you use the blockchain technology to track your product. Can you explain that in maybe non-geek way?
Okay, I'll do my best. So I'm not. So I've said this a couple times. We're very committed to transparency with our customers, and that's where we saw using blockchain technology as a way to help elevate that. And so the way we use that is to help tell that create that journey from farm to fork that allows a customer to scan that QR code and trace that journey of the chicken from the farm to the processor to their doorstep. And so what the blockchain technology is allowing us to do is it gives, we're using an app. We partner with a company based out of the UK, actually called Provenance, and they have developed a technology that helps show transparency in a supply chain. And so we, each member of that supply chain, the farmer, the processors, the aggregator, they have their own user interface. And when a flock of chickens are going off to the processor, then that farmer goes on and makes that entry saying that, we're taking this flock to the processor. When they receive it, the processor is logging onto their account and confirming that what the farmer has delivered matches up with what they received. And so it's what that does is each time that's sort of that flock is passed on through the supply chain, there is a corresponding peer-to-peer consensus moment where they are saying, yes, what happened, they're both confirming what happened here. And so that doesn't seem like much, but it's very different than what, if you go into a grocery store, you're really having to trust that the front-facing brand is telling you the truth. Or in some cases, you're just trusting the grocery store. Mm-hmm. In this situation, you have each member of the supply chain creating, basically making their transportation log transparent to the customer, and so the customer can have more detailed information that's not being input by the front-facing brand, but by each member of that supply chain. So it really creates a different level of transparency and accountability that you don't, if you go and buy an apple at the grocery store, you might be lucky to find country of origin, right? Let alone anything else. Same thing with a package of pork in the case. You can see the USDA number that would trace back to one of the last processing facility, but there is no way to go any further back than that. And so we're using this technology to be able to give our customers the chance to trace all the way every single package of chicken breast or a package of ground beef, to trace that all the way across that chain step by step in a way that is really unprecedented.
Yeah.
Perhaps we should explain to the listener that the blockchain cannot be altered.
That's right. Yeah. Once that farmer and that processor make that data entry and it's confirmed and it matches up, then that can no longer be changed or altered by anybody. And so, if there's a dispute between those two, then that we can't hide that, right? And so it really sort of creates a different level of accountability and traceability, transparency. So
I think it's fantastic. I think the whole food environment should be on the blockchain. Does that mean we can buy meat with Bitcoins?
Not yet. No, we don't accept Bitcoins yet, but we've talked about it though. Now, actually Heifer International, the nonprofit we work closely with, they do accept donations in cryptocurrency, which is kind of cool. So we don't accept cryptocurrencies yet.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to when you're ready to do that.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll let Mark take over.
Oh, the hard questions.
Not so much, really. I mean, I made a few observations as we go through. Something I do want you to bring out is, you've given us a lot of information. Where can people find more about you, and where can they find the products?
So Grass Roots Co-op, so COOP.com. Yep.
And are you on sort of social media? Do you?
Yeah, under Grass Roots Co-op on, we're active on Instagram and Facebook especially.
Excellent.
And it's grassroots with the nest and farms with the nest, right?
Yeah.
Co-op. Yeah. Okay. Just making sure.
Sure. Yeah.
Super job. I want to come back and address one thing, and that's the price. Alan mentioned it earlier that people complain that high quality meat is often comes with a high price. But it seems to me the way you're working is you're cutting out most of the middlemen in the chain.
Yep, that's right.
So I'm guessing the customer actually gets much better value.
So what we are doing is we're trying to maximize what we give back to the farmer so that farmers can make a living at a smaller scale using more, it's just going to be more labor intensive production models. So one of the challenges, so there's a lot of e-commerce companies out there that are taking a more traditional, like razors, right? They're taking razors that are produced in a typical razor factory and cutting out the grocery stores or the middlemen and selling that same razor for $1, right? Dollar shave, And so what we're doing is we're actually reconstructing the entire supply chain. And so we don't have, Dollar Shave Club is able to sell a razor for $1 because they are working with suppliers that are producing on the industrial scale. We are not working with farmers that are producing on the industrial scale. We're working with farmers that are raising flocks of 500 chickens versus their a Tyson farmer that's raising a flock of 25 to 40,000 chickens. Right. We process we'll process a couple thousand chickens in a day. They will process hundreds of thousands of chickens in a day, right? So one of the challenges that we faced we just have a higher cost of production because we are cutting out the middleman, but we're also we're being uncompromising on our standards and our commitment to the quality of the animal, the quality of the environment, and the health of the product. So that help explain a bit of that, because that is kind of a trend that I see out there.
Yeah.
Cut out the middleman, it makes it cheaper, and so I think it's cheaper than so. One of the reasons why we haven't been able to get our product into Whole Foods is that Whole Foods doesn't feel like they can charge enough to be able to sell this. Yeah. And that's one reason why it's a shame, because you end up in a situation where they won't have the quality of the products in their store. If you go into a Whole Foods in the entire Southwest region, you'll be lucky to find anything above a GAP 2 pork standard. And what that means is it's essentially a factory raised hog. And that's because they're definitely built this brand around high quality, but and uncompromising standards. But they really do compromise a lot of standards, because they don't want to charge too much for their products. They don't want to be labeled as whole paycheck anymore. And,
and now that Amazon owns them, it's going to get worse.
That's right. Yeah, and so we've taken a philosophy of we don't want to compromise, and we believe that it works still. We can still sell ground beef cheaper than a Snickers bar per pound.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's the other thing you mentioned was that you provide training. Is that training to farmers and to the general public, or who?
So we provide training to the farmers. So we're helping farmers get better at raising their chickens, or in some cases they may add a new enterprise to their farm, or folks who are, I mentioned Heifer International earlier, we work with them. They have actually a training program where young folks that are interested in farming can come and spend time working on a farm to learn more about these production practices, and then potentially become a farmer for Grass Roots. And so we're helping upstart farmers get into this, and we're helping farmers that are already existing farmers either change their production practices, improve them, or maybe add a new enterprise.
Excellent. So do you also provide education for the consumer?
So we do through our blog and one of the things that we're working on for the very near future is having a farm center where customers can come and stay for a weekend, stay for a couple of days, bring their kids, and see these productions in practice, and eat the food, learn more about the health benefits, learn about cooking, and so that's something that's coming very
White Oak Farms is already doing something like this, where they have a restaurant which used to be only for employees, but since all the products are grown on the farm, on the weekend they allow people to come in and eat at the restaurant, so they can taste the good food and, of course, buy the products right there at the store. So they recently started offering lodging. So they have these sort of mini trailers where you can stay. 1-2 people. You can have 2 trailers for that, and it allows people to walk around. Actually, I stayed there a week about 2 years ago, and I stepped out of my lodging, and there was chicken running around. There was pigs and everything. I mean, right there, just as I opened my door. And I had a couple of kitty cats that adopted me. I think they enjoy eating the quiche made by the restaurant, so I fed them quiche for.
That's great. That's funny. Yeah.
So it is a great idea. It allows customers to, some of them are old enough, for example, I would say grandparents, to bring their grandkids and expose them to what real food is about. Because, I used to teach in culinary school, and it was amazing how many of my students didn't have a clue where the meat was coming from. And they look at the live chicken and it's like, oh, so that's where a chicken breast is coming from. Right? Same with the meat, I mean, it's not something that anyone would want to see, processing an animal, which Oak Farms allow me to see. And then typically they don't show that to customers unless they really ask for it. But, for any chef out there, it should be required, for them to actually see how the food is served to their customers is handled and processed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Super. I mean, just a sort of a left field question. How do you guarantee sort of the GMO or no GMO in your foods?
So that is going through a certifying body in that situation. So, and we work closely with our feed mill that has direct relationships with the farmers that they're sourcing their feeds from. And so it's actually a Mennonite group of farmers in southern Missouri. So it's pretty close. It's not like it's coming from international. It is a fairly local to us, but we are in that case relying on the certifying body. Then we do lots of different feed tests to make sure that what we're getting is what we think we're getting.
Yeah, speaking of which, I understand that you only use American suppliers, right? Not products from China, or whatever.
Yes,
and that is a great way to support American providers as well, farmers, other farmers that provide food for your animals.
Yeah. Everything that all of our farmers are based in the U.S. They're all, and all the feed that we use comes from from the Midwest, and so yes, we're 100% U.S. based.
That's great. That's great. You support local food system.
Yeah, that's right.
So, Cody, you've given us a lot of information, as I've said. Is there anything that we should have asked and didn't?
No, I think you went through it all pretty much. So it was a great conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Excellent. Alan, I think it's time to do the close.
It's time for my funny close, right?
Yes.
So here we go. Thank you again, Cody, for being on the Local Paleo Show. And as we say in Texas, à votre santé, y'all.
Hear that everywhere in Texas?
Yeah. Everywhere.
Everywhere.
Excellent.
Thanks for coming.